Okay, welcome to the class. Thank you for joining. Let's go through the different aspect, right? The different aspect of what is it that you need to secure in terms of security. What do you need to secure in terms of security? Identifying and understanding the high-level concepts surrounding information security tools and securing yourself digitally. Now, when you have a computer and digital device, it becomes integral for conducting business, which also makes them a target of attack. So devices need to be secured, network needs to be secured. Why do hackers hack? What is their objective? How do they do it? Why do they do it? And how do you safeguard yourself against unauthorized users coming into your system? Now, hackers, when they come in, there are three things that can be compromised. Ada tiga perkara yang menjadi masalah utama. Satu adalah confidentiality, right? Confidentiality. So, maklumat yang PNC, private and confidential, maklumat yang sepatutnya tidak kongsi, maklumat yang kita tidak memberi peluang atau memberi keizinan untuk dikongsi, diambil oleh pihak hackers. Right? So you fill up a form, you fill up your name, you fill up your IC number, your address, you fill up a lot of other details, and these details captured through, say, a web form is confidential. Right? So confidentiality means only restricted number of people can see this information. Right? Hanya pihak-pihak yang terhad, pihak-pihak tertentu sahaja boleh melihat maklumat-maklumat yang dimasukkan ke dalam pangkalan data melalui data yang dikumpul. Contohnya data customer. So the confidentiality. So private and confidential data is meant to be kept and not to be shared, right? So when hackers, crackers, sniffers, when they see this data, they are not authorized to see. They are not authorized to edit. They are not authorized to delete. So whenever you fill up a form, it is confidential. So imagine if part of filling up the form, you're doing it online, you upload a copy of your IC. You bagi salinan soft copy kad pengenalan. Now, sesiapa yang hack into the system dan dapat kopi IC tersebut boleh melakukan banyak transaksi menggunakan IC ini. So they can impersonate you, menyamar diri sebagai anda dan mengambil bank loan. Imagine if they took $100,000 bank loan. They can buy things on, say, easy payment method. That means they only make the first payment. They can do so many things with this because this is a confidential document. Right? So, maklumat-maklumat peribadi yang sepatutnya tidak dikongsi menjadi sasaran orang yang hacker penggodam sesuatu sistem. Right? So the confidentiality is lost. So you have to be very careful of this kind of scenario. Right? Medical record, confidential. So medical record also needs to be kept secretly. Right? Kalau intruder, orang yang memasuki tanpa izin ke dalam komputer sistem mengubah database tersebut, right, mengubah data tersebut, data itu akan menjadi hilang integriti dia. Data adalah tidak betul. Data adalah tidak lengkap. Data adalah dimanipulasi. So, ini dikenali sebagai integriti data tidak ada. So bila ini berlaku, ia boleh merugikan entiti bisnes, syarikat, organisation tersebut. Right? Sebab maklumat ada tapi telah diubah. Right? And this is quite serious. Now, the third thing that you are looking at in terms of intruder is they hack the system until it is not available. So say you are a website like Shopee. You make online sales worth 20,000 Malaysian ringgit daily on average. Secara purata, online sales, penjualan produk-produk online anda adalah 20,000 ringgit Malaysia sehari. Nah, apabila hacker hack into your system and make it unavailable, anda dalam 5 hari ataupun katakan sehari boleh hilang 20,000 ringgit keuntungan yang anda sepatutnya ada sebab hacker itu telah menjadikan server anda tidak boleh digunakan. So the availability is lost. And one of the key things that they use to bring down the availability of a server is called a DOS attack. Kita akan melihat secara lebih mendalam attack-attack yang berbeza. Tapi just to give you an idea, right? They attack the system with so much of false transaction until it collapse. Until dia tak boleh handle lagi. Right? So the availability is lost. So these are things that you have to take into consideration in terms of the availability of the system. The availability of the system. Kalau availability dia tak ada, maksud dia tidak boleh menerima ataupun tidak boleh membuat sebarang transaksi pada e-commerce website, for example. Right? So the confidentiality, integrity dengan availability dikompromi, is compromised. So the CIA, confidentiality, integrity and availability, is called the CIA triad. Okay, 3 gabungan perkara yang objektif utama penggodam, objektif utama hacker. Right? So these are their main modes of bringing down the system. Right? So macam manakah anda menjalankan ataupun menggunakan peralatan tools, software tools, methods, policies to ensure that information security is upheld? Apakah jalan ataupun perkakasan software dari segi hardware yang anda akan menggunakan untuk menentukan bahawa dari segi security information tu tidak di-compromise. So one of it is authentication, right? Authentication. Now, di mana-mana sahaja sistem yang anda memasuki, right? Di mana-mana saja sistem yang anda memasuki akan ada satu level yang dikenali sebagai username password. Betul tak? Anda selalu akan minta. Tak ada sistem, servis, e-commerce website, there is no any access to any known system of any value that do not ask you for a username and password. So you create a username, you create a password. So that is authentication. Authentication is to ensure the person that enters the system is the person that is authorized to enter. So kalau you go to Maybank, you have your username and password. Dengan kombinasi username dengan password, sistem mengenali anda sebagai pemegang akaun bank tersebut. Dengan memasuki username dengan password ke dalam website e-commerce, contohnya Shopee mengenali anda adalah orang yang register, you are the one who registered for this account. So your postage address, your delivery address, your contact details, what you have bought, when it will be sent to you, all is there in the system. Authentication, username, password. So ada setengah tempat dia hanya you boleh memasuki account bank, but when you want to do a transfer, they ask you to request for something called a OTP, a one-time password. What is a one-time password? A one-time password, right? OTP will be sent to your handphone. It's a 6-digit code that you will enter before you do your transfer. Why is it that you have already logged into your account? You have already logged into your account, but you still need to do a second level of applying for an OTP, wait for the OTP to arrive on your handphone, key in the OTP number, submit, then only you can do the transfer. Why is that? Why is it that I'm already in my bank account? I've already put in my username and password. What is the reason why I still need to ask for a one-time password? This is a second level authentication to ensure that it is another layer of security. They want to make double sure that you are who you say you are. You are who you say you are. Some banks have got a token. It looks like a flash drive, a thumb drive that you fix into your USB, and the OTP will flash on the panel, right? So there's different methods, but basically they do not rely on just one layer, username, password. They have multiple layers to ensure that you are who you say you are. You are the person authorized, dibenarkan to use that specific account, right? So you are looking at authentication. The second level is access control, right? The second level is access control. Access control enables you to only see information that you are authorized to see. So contohnya dalam sistem dalam sebuah syarikat, saya boleh masuki sistem untuk apply for leave, mengambil cuti. So bila saya mengambil cuti, saya boleh melihat berapa baki cuti. Bila saya mengambil cuti sebelum ini, dalam tahun ni, berapakah bilangan hari yang saya ada untuk bercuti. All this information is there in my system, and I only can see mine. I cannot see my colleagues' leave system. But if I am the manager, I can see my staff's leave because I approve, right? I approve my staff want to go on leave, I will have to approve. So I have access to, saya boleh melihat sistem cuti staff saya. Kalau saya adalah manager kepada pekerja-pekerja tersebut. So access control. I cannot see somebody else's salary. I cannot see somebody else's leave unless I am human resource or I am the manager. So access control makes it that sebab dalam sebuah syarikat there's a lot of data being kept. Not everybody should be able to see everything. Not everybody is able to see everything. So the access control will enable the system to limit what you can see. Right? Limit what you can see. That is access control, and it's a very important aspect, especially if you study database. So database, pangkalan data, is a repository of all the information that the company has. So who can see what data is also access control. So access control has got a twofold aspect to it, in the sense that it ensures that you can only see data that you are authorized to see. You cannot see data you are not authorized to see. Who decides who has got what access control? who can see all the data? Who can see part of the data? Who decides? So there will be somebody in the department called the system admin. Now, if it's the access control of a database, it will be the database administrator, the DBA. They call it DBA, database administrator. They will set your access level. Can I only see the data? Which is called reader. Can I only read the data? Tengok sahaja. Can I read and edit the data? Can I make any changes? Can I read, edit and delete? Can I delete data? Right? So this is all under access control. The database administrators are the ones, right? The database administrators are the ones who will set the access control for you to see what is in the database. The system administrator is the overall, all the other parts of the system, right? So they hold the control. So these are things that you have to ensure information is secure. Now the other thing is called encryption. What exactly is encryption? How does encryption work? Right? How does encryption work? So you are looking at, say you want to send a private and confidential message through email. So you type there, "Hi John." You're sending an email to John. Now if, "Hi John, how are you?" So what happens with this is when you actually send, if you actually send this kind of message across, the words will get scrambled. So H will become a dollar sign. I will become a liar sign. Okay? Hi. Then John. J will become O. O, John, right? John. O becomes P. So they scramble it. So when you look at the message also, dia nampak scramble. You tak boleh baca, you tak boleh decipher and tidak boleh memahami sebab sekarang data telah di-encrypted. How encrypted work is there is a encryption software using something called a key which will change all the data, scramble it so that kalau hacker access pun dia tak boleh guna data tu sebab data tu tidak memberi apa-apa maksud. Tidak boleh dibaca. Boleh buka, boleh melihat, tapi data tu telah di-scramble. So this data is sent across a network and then when it reaches the recipient, orang yang sepatutnya menerima, dia ada software untuk tukar balik yang, sebab file tu dah scramble kan. So orang yang menerima kena boleh baca. So they will use a decryption algorithm program, a key that will be sent to them to open and see the original message, original file, original data. So that is how encryption works. So encryption will not stop the hacker. It will disable the hacker to be able to use the file that is being sent. Tak guna, dia tak boleh buat apa-apa sebab information tu dah di-scramble. Right? Now, the password that you set for any system has to be set in such a way that it can expire. It should expire. So when can it expire? How can it expire? You should be able to set it up. You should not allow the person to set up a password with just alphabets only. So it will have uppercase, lowercase, right? It will have symbols. It will have numbers, right? So all this combination and then of a certain length has to be more than 8 characters and symbol. Not anything less than that. You cannot reuse an old password. All these things must be enforced, right? Semua ni kena jadikan sebagai method supaya you set up the password, right? Backup. How do you backup your system? Now, bila seseorang tu memasuki ke dalam sesuatu komputer sistem, right? Dia boleh melakukan banyak perkara yang membinasakan, menghapuskan data, melakukan sesuatu di mana seluruh komputer sistem tidak boleh digunakan lagi. So, jikalau anda tak ada salinan, backup, if you don't have a backup, if you don't have data in a storage, right? Anda boleh hilang semua data-data yang telah dikumpul dan telah disimpan. So, you must always have a backup, the latest backup. So, the backup can be in cloud, can be in a remote site, can be in an external hard disk, but it has to be safe, it has to be data yang anda backup mesti adalah yang terkini, information yang terkini, because there's no use for you to have a backup but the backup is 7 days old. Between that date and now you have made many changes to many documents, your data has changed extensively but your version is old. Anda boleh menggunakan backup ni tapi sekarang anda perlu update balik. Anda akan hilang banyak kerja-kerja yang telah dilakukan dalam 7 hari ini jikalau anda tidak membackup secara terkini. Right? So backup. Another tool that you would use for information security is firewall. Right? Firewall. What are firewalls? How do you use firewalls? And what are they? So firewall adalah komputer, adalah server, komputer, hardware kan, komputer hardware yang telah diinstal dengan beberapa software dan software-software ini diletak di dalam network anda supaya sebarang traffic yang masuk daripada luar, daripada internet, dia connect dulu kepada firewall dulu. Firewall akan buat inspection dulu. Okay, this traffic legitimate, biar lalu. Dia macam security guard. It's like a security post in the front of your company. So you have a security guard at the front of the company. Sesiapa yang tidak sepatutnya datang, tak ada access card, bukan staff, dia okay, stop, you cannot go through. The same thing is the firewall. But what the firewall stops is something called data traffic. Saluran ataupun aliran traffic, internet, data on the telecommunication line, they will stop it if it is suspicious. If it is suspicious. So that is the firewall. Now, say you are a bank like Citibank and you have a few branches in KL itself, KLPJ, say you have 3 branches and your data is very, very sensitive, very important, tak boleh di-compromise. So you can create something called a virtual private network. So you create a link, a communication link where only you can send data from one branch to another branch. It's not a public link. Nobody else have access to this link. You link up a few cawangan. This is called a virtual private network. Right? So, bila anda menghadkan yang ini, tak adalah sebarang public ataupun sebarang orang boleh menggunakan. So, contohnya kalau you have a road and this road is cordoned off, only you can use. So, the chances, the people actually coming in is much less because it's not a public road. Right? So, virtual private network. Physical security is cara anda menggunakan hard concept in physical security, right? Now, say you have your database, you keep it in your server room in one, say at level 1 at room 101. So here is where you keep all your data in a database and it's highly secure. So you have all the facilities and all. Should you allow anyone to enter this room? Can anybody enter this room? So if you have 100 staff, can all 100 staff go in? I can just walk in anytime into this kind of room, right? No. So maybe they have a biometric panel on the door. Only 3 people, 4 people, whoever have got direct access of maintaining these servers can get into the system. So this is a physical barrier. You don't allow anybody to enter this room physically to cause any physical damage, physical security, right? You have biometric system to only allow certain people to come in, right? Physical security. You vet when somebody joins a company, you vet them. VET, vet. You akan temuduga, you akan buat background check untuk mengenal pasti bahawa orang ni adalah tak ada unsur-unsur jenayah, tak ada unsur-unsur yang membimbangkan, tak ada unsur-unsur yang mencurigakan. Baru anda mengambil orang ini sebab sekarang ni orang ni akan membuat kerja yang paling sensitif. Dia adalah contohnya database administrator. Dia boleh mengakses, melihat semua data company ni. So you want to find somebody who is reliable, somebody who will not share the data, right? So there's a lot of physical security. Policy. What do I mean by security policy? So I have multiple aspects in terms of security policy. Number 1, when I have somebody join, I will give them training. Number 2, I will have certain guidelines, or what we all know very famously now, SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. Actually, it's SOPP, Standard Operating Policy and Procedure adalah langkah-langkah yang diambil jika sesuatu insiden berlaku. So if there is intrusion detection, there is a suspicion, what does the system administrator do? So number 1, number 2, number 3, there is a step by step. So there's a guideline, ada documentation di mana dia akan membagi langkah-langkah yang perlu diambil untuk menentukan apa akan berlaku if there is a security breach. So these are all the things that you have to have in place in terms of security policy, right? So let's come back to authentication. Bagaimanakah anda mengenali orang yang memasuki sistem adalah orang yang sebenarnya sepatutnya masuk dalam sistem? So what is the thing that can identify you? So if you want to take something from, if you want to withdraw money from an ATM machine, you must have the ATM card. You must have the ATM card. So now you have the ATM card. When you put it in, you now have to have the 6-digit PIN. Only then you can transfer money. So these are all methods to authenticate, untuk to say that the person accessing the information is who they say they are. Identify them as the correct person who can access. So the ID identifies and the password authenticates, right? So sometimes you need 2 level, right? You need to have 2 level. So we also looked at access control, right? So who can read, who can modify, who can add data, who can delete data, right? So these are things that is assigned to ensure that resources are listed resources can be identified and who can actually access them. Yang ini paling penting. Yang ini paling penting. So rather than so for example, office has got 100 staff, right? Who can access all the information? Maybe out of 100 you have only 2. So there is something called the access control list, which says which resources, which information siapa yang boleh access. Who can read, write, delete. These are the 3 main things. Right? Read, write and delete. Write is to edit, to put in new information and all that. Right? So there is somebody who will ensure that this list is up to date and this list is accurate. Right? So sometimes the access control depends on your level. So level manager, dia boleh melihat lebih maklumat. Level pekerja, dia hanya boleh melihat maklumat peribadi saja. Kalau manager, dia boleh melihat maklumat peribadi dia sendiri dengan maklumat semua pekerja-pekerja di bawah dia. His immediate staff, he can see. Right? So management level, so it can be role based. Senior manager boleh melihat lebih maklumat. CEO, semua maklumat. Right? So maybe it also can be segregated using the level of where the person is in the organization. Where the person is in the organization can will impact what access they can have. Right? So we talked about encryption. So an encryption is an algorithm or a program which encodes or scramble information during transmission of storage. So bila anda menghantar, so say an email has got an attachment. Email has got attachment, you click send. What happens is the data is traveling through a public network to reach the destination. So you don't even have a hacker that comes into your system. You have somebody who hacks at the network level because it's all public network. Once you release something, you don't have control, correct or not? You have no control because it's going through a public network. So anybody can crack, hack, access this data which is going through a public network. So you use a program, before you send it off, you use a program which will change the information to a scramble or to a encrypted format. So the example that I gave is when somebody opens it, they can hack, they can crack, they can see, they can look, but they cannot understand. Sebab tak boleh dibaca, tak boleh difahami. Only the recipient is given the key, which is a software which can change it back to the original format. Right? So the program has got a formula which will change every single alphabet, number, symbol into something else. Right? And nobody knows how the scrambling is done. Right? Except for, of course, the programmer lah. So this is called, the software that you use is called the symmetric key. Right? The symmetric key, sender and receiver have the key. Right? So sometimes you use a public or a private key for encryption. So password, what are password policies? So sometimes it is hard coded, where after 3 months, after 6 months, after a certain period of time, your password will actually expire. So some system has that. So you have to constantly change your password, and when you want to set a new password, they will not allow an old password to be reused because they already have it in your database. You tak boleh reuse balik, right? And then you don't share the password. You don't send the password through email. You don't share it. You don't write it down, right? And then you use it carefully, right? So it has got a certain length. And then to make it into a strong password, you have upper, lowercase, special character, number. All this, then you set the length. So the length shouldn't be short, shouldn't be 6, 8, should be longer, right? So if somebody tries to put in a 6 character password, it will be rejected. It will be automatically rejected, right? So these are some of the things that you have to ensure. Backup. What is backup? So important portion of the information system which needs to be kept useful for the organization must be backup and store in a separate location. Why do we always say that simpan di tempat lain? It's because that sometimes when natural disaster happen, kebakaran, gempa bumi, banjir, if everything is in the same, so you put it into an external hard disk. External hard disk atas meja, komputer pun dekat atas meja. Kalau apa-apa berlaku, dua-dua musnah, right? So you store it in a separate location. Very useful in the event that the primary computer system becomes unavailable, right? And a good backup plan requires understanding the organizational information. How often do you have to do backup? Katakan you backup hujung minggu, right? And then your system is lost on a Thursday. So you have lost almost 6 days of work, right? So your backup plan, what is the information? How regularly you have to backup? Where is your off-site backup storage? Do you backup in cloud, right? And then you from time to time you check, test data restoration. Contohnya, satu cara yang boleh menyebabkan sistem go down is what has happened today, right? So the electricity went down. So some organizations, they have a UPS. A UPS stands for uninterrupted power supply. Dia macam generator. So when it will come immediately when the electricity go down, the UPS system come up. So tak nampak pun, tak ada hilang seminit, sesaat pun, sistem tak akan tutup. Sebab electricity masih jalan. Electric masih jalan sebab UPS automatically take over when the electricity goes down. So these are things that you can put in the organization, in the company, in the business to ensure that availability is always there. Right? And bila anda backup ke tempat lain, you actually make sure there is at a remote site. Firewall. So firewall is a server which has got a set of software, right? Then you inspect and stop the packet of information that don't apply to a strict set of rules. So you check data-data yang masuk ke dalam organisation ni daripada mana apa, you inspect the information yang masuk. So firewall is connected to the network. It stands at the connection between the organization system and the networking and the internet. So the software in the firewalls run on the operating system and intercept ialah dia akan like a roadblock. It stops, it checks valid. Dia dekat roadblock kan, bila diminta berhenti, dia akan apa? Dia akan masuk, dia akan tengok kan. Bukan masuk lah, dia akan tengok who is in. Ask you some question, let you go. So the software does that. Doesn't ask lah, it checks. It checks what kind of traffic, what kind of data is coming in. So can implement multiple firewalls to allow segment of the network to be partially secured to conduct businesses. Intrusion detection system. So you have a system. System ni apa? Dia adalah software to watch for specific types of activities to alert security personnel of potential network. Intrusion detection adalah sebagai langkah keselamatan sebelum perkara yang tidak ingini berlaku. Dia akan membagi amaran. Sebab dia kata, oh, traffic ni suspicious. Okay, suspicious. Daripada source yang suspicious. So, before the network, they try to alert. Right? So, what do large organization with the resources, what they can do is they can create a virtual private network. Right? They can create something called a virtual private network. So what's a virtual private network? Some system can be made private using an internal network, can be accessed remotely and are more secure. So it requires specific connection such as being on site, and VPN allows users to remotely access this system over a public network like the internet. Right? So you have certain areas that you have this kind of networks. What are physical security? So contohnya saya bagi adalah when you have highly critical data, server, web server, you keep it under lock and key inside a locked door. Right? Then you have a CCTV to monitor. Then you have secure equipment. Then you have monitor controlling, environment controlling. Now, the server needs to be kept in a cool temperature. Excuse me. Sebab maintenance of a computer is part of security. Kalau you tak maintain server itu overheated. The system goes down, it's not available, you lose 20,000. Blink of an eye. So the physical aspect of keeping everything up to date, keeping everything service, maintenance is also important. And then you train your employees on what needs to be done to ensure security. Right? What are security policies? So the company says that if you are bringing your own device, BYOD, bring your own device, when you connect your device into the company network, we want everyone who does bring their own device to have a antivirus in your PC, in your laptop. So this is a policy. So bila anda bawa your own personal, because all the other machines in the organization, they have the IT department which will update and ensure antivirus is there, everything is cleaned up. But when you're bringing something from outside, right, they cannot monitor that. They tell you, you must make sure it is installed with an antivirus, and you yourself, as in the device, is virus free. Okay, dia macam bila you masuk kedai dulu kan, dia ambil temperature kan. So they take your temperature before they let you in. So if the temperature is high, bye-bye. So when you connect your device and your device has a virus, you're stopped from using that device, right? So certain things are put into place as a part of the policy untuk menentukan bahawa tak ada unsur-unsur yang tidak diingini memasuki information system secara tidak sengaja ataupun secara sengaja. So these are important things that you must understand. Right? Personal information security. Simple steps that individuals can take. Simple steps that individuals can take to keep their software up to date. So software mesti selalu up to date. So sekarang ni in most cases you don't have to worry about this because as soon as you get connected to the internet, dia akan buat update secara automatic. Right? But you have to make sure and suspicious software are removed from your computer. Number 1, software up to date. Number 2, must have antivirus software. Number 3, when you're using a public Wi-Fi, public network, you limit the type of transactions that you do. You do not do banking on a public Wi-Fi. So you go to KLCC, you go to KLIA, there is an open network. You do not use it for secure transaction. So you use public network carefully, right? Always back up your data. You must always back up your data. Secure your accounts with two-factor authentication. Make your password long, unique, and strong. Now, another important thing that you must understand about password is please do not use the same password for all your different applications. What happens is if they manage to crack your password, they can go into all your other application, they can go into your banking site, they can go into your e-commerce site, and so many things can happen. So do not yourself use the same password on various different platform, different application, different software. When you receive an email of suspicious or strange link with attachment, you do not open it. Okay, you do not open it. So, information security, you always look in terms of the availability, integrity, confidentiality. Number 1. Then you look at how and what tools that you can use to secure your information system. You need to secure yourself digitally. Now, when you post information on certain site, like a social media site, you have to be very careful of the kind of information that you post and how much of information that you're compromising or you're sharing. Because information that you post can be used for different purposes. So you have to be very careful of how you secure yourself digitally. Right? How do you secure yourself digitally and what you need to actually do in terms of information security. Right? So what are the methods that you would use to secure yourself? Right? How do you actually ensure that you secure yourself? Right? Now, the security threats that we have discussed so far, we have looked a lot external. Okay? Data boleh dicuri, data theft. Anda boleh mendapat infection, dijangkiti oleh malware, malicious software, virus, worm. People will try to steal your information through spoofing, through phishing, through sniffing. Semua ini adalah anasir-anasir daripada luar, external. But you must remember that there's always an internal factor. There is always an internal factor. So what are internal factors? Right? Internal factors is you can have somebody within the organization that actually compromise this information, share company information. Okay, in fact, the company with malicious software, right? So you have to be very careful. So within the organization, threats are bigger as people are closer to the data storage. They are inside, so it can be even more dangerous. What can they do is they have limited access, but they can hack inside the organization to access unauthorized data, copy the data, steal the data, right, and share it, right? Uh, so if you go to Maybank to you today and you do a transaction, you do the transaction, right? You actually do the transaction. After you do the transaction, you go to your browser and you browse. Now, what happened with Maybank to you is what will they do? They will have a timer, and if your system is dormant, tidak digunakan, uninterrupted over a few minutes, what do? They log you out. They automatically kick you out because when you leave it open, the hackers can actually try to get in. Right? So leaving data system without logging out are all things that can cause. So this might not be something that you do knowingly, but it is also human error, right? It is human error. So one way is certain systems, they have biometric. So you have a reader, you letak your thumb, bila dia membaca cap jari baru dia memulakan ataupun dia akan membenarkan anda melakukan beberapa proses. So these are steps that are taken to ensure that you are who you say you are who is authorized to do those transactions, and then you are allowed to. So the system is, because the system is a system, it's just a software, right? So I cannot see you, I cannot see who you are, but I need to authenticate you. How do I authenticate you? I check your username password matching, let you in. After that, you go a level deeper. I want to authenticate you a second time, another level, one-time password, right? A one-time password. A lot of organizations has one-time password. Like if you go to Maybank, you go to CIMB Bank, you go to Citibank, they all have this because they want to safeguard your money. They want to safeguard your transaction, so they will enforce two level of authentication. Adakah anda betul-betul orang yang anda memperkenalkan diri sebagai, and you're not masquerading, that means tidak menyamar. Tak ada orang yang cuba menyamar. That is why some places when you try to go into certain system, kan dia akan kata please click on pictures of a truck or a boat or a school. It's called a captcha, right? Because there are a lot of bots, BOT. BOT is software which goes in to gain access and to collect information. So they want to make sure you're not a BOT, a bot, a software, a malicious software. They ask you to click, right? So if you click wrongly, they give you maybe another chance. Okay, click images of the aeroplane or bridge or things like that. It's called a captcha, right? So that's an interesting concept that you also have to ensure that you can actually do this and it actually works, right? So biometric is using for example thumb, retinal scan mata, voice. So if the voice matches, it will open, right? So these are physical way of securing to ensure that you are there. Now sometimes the security is not a person, it can be natural disaster, it can be power failure. So power failure, one way is we have something called a UPS, right? Natural disaster like a flood, a fire. That is why we say your backup has to be physically in a different location. So when any one of these happen, power failure or natural disaster, there is a way that management will ensure that the system will come up as fast as it can. So you have a disaster management plan and a policy, right? So when you keep your backup data offsite, site A kena banjir, site B boleh diaktifkan. So sekarang pengguna tak nampak pun sistem tu down. Tak sedar pun ada sebarang disaster. Sistem masih berjalan sebab now you have up and running your backup which is at a different site. So you need to always be prepared. Right? Always be prepared that your system can go down and you need to actually have a backup plan. Okay, the system can go down because of malicious software, can go down because of data theft, can go down because of a DOS attack, right? So, and then you also need to secure all the external devices which you allow to connect to your system like mobile phone. So the worm, the virus can come in from the mobile phone, can actually come in from the mobile phone itself. So whenever you're connected to the internet, you are increasing your security. So because of that, you have to have all the tools, data encryption, intrusion detection, your password, your firewall, the physical to access control, all of this to actually ensure that you have this information and have the system always up and running. So information system must be always available. Data and information within the system must always be confidential, and data and information in the system must always have integrity. You tidak boleh membagi maklumat yang salah kepada pengguna. Right? So maklumat yang salah adalah very, very dangerous. So integrity must always be there. So these three things must always be surety. Mesti adalah jaminan yang anda memberi supaya sistem itu sentiasa berjalan lancar, berjalan secara efektif dan tidak ada apa-apa gangguan. Always available. Right? So these are things that you have to ensure that is there and that is always available. So make sure that you check what are the steps that you can take to ensure. So it's not just the system that is secure, you yourself have to be secure. What do I mean? That means you yourself have a checklist of what you need to do, right? To secure yourself, to secure your information system. So if the server room is in a particular location, you have to keep it under lock and keys. Not everybody can walk into a server room. Never. Right? If you bring your own device, what needs to be done? Right? How do you check the health? How do you check your system, the health of your system? So you have a medical checkup for a person. You also have a health checkup for your network, for your system. So any software that you're not using, you need to uninstall. You need to check for bugs. You need to check for random unauthorized intrusion trying to access your system. All of this have to be put into place to ensure that your system is always available. right? Always, always available. So these are some of the important aspects. So please go through your slides, and if you have any question, you can ask me during class. Thank you very much. So today's lesson was on the triad: confidentiality, availability, integrity in terms of information security, and we looked at the different tools. Okay, thank you.